Rogue Company Season 4 Intel Rogue tier list. Let's kick it off with Dallas, and where better to start than talking about the guns that Dallas can use off the rip. Pardon the pun. He can use both the Riptide, get it, and the Devotion, which are assault rifles and DMRs retrospectively. However, upon completing weapon mastery, you can divert away from these guns, which I would recommend, and use any assault rifle and any DMR. His ability, Target Finder, is probably the best of the three Intel Rogues for reliable reveals, which always reveals the closest enemy for a short duration, which is perfect for pushing sites as it can give you an indication of someone that is nearby. The only downside to this is it only reveals one enemy. If there are more than one on site, then you don't get that information like say you do with Talon's dart or Seeker's bow. To make up for that though, his passive is recharge, meaning you can recharge your target finder upon downing an enemy, which could be super useful later on in rounds or really useful in respawn game modes where you can just keep resupplying that target finder ability to give your team that all important intel. Where I can see this being super clutch is in the new game mode battle zone that is dropping next Tuesday, to have the reveal target finder later on when the circle is smaller to gain that all important information, and you can really stack winning that round in your favor. This is also a very hard to counter ability, unless of course you have Ronin on the other team, which could catch you off guard. Dallas also has access to the LW6 revolver pistol, and whilst this isn't one of my personal favorites as it has a low fire rate, it does hit hard. He also has access to the incendiary grenade, which can be really helpful on both attack and defense game modes like demolition, but also on all game modes to flush your enemy out from behind the cover. His adrenaline shot can also be useful in all game modes to start that health regeneration instantly, and you can really help you win those 1v2 battles. Dallas also has some super powerful perks at tier 1. He can unlock padded steps, which means Dallas can get all crafty and hit the enemy teams on the flank. He also has access to Stalker, which right now is one of my favorite perks, along with Replenish and Headstrong, which again are both very useful. Whilst Dallas can only reveal one enemy at a time, he can recharge its ability and is effective 100% of the time. For this reason, I have to give Dallas a 5 out of 5. Next up, Talon. Talon out of the three Intel Rogues is the only one that has access to submachine guns, and he starts off with the LMPX, which is a nice hybrid between SMGs and assault rifles. He also has access to DMRs, which to be honest, all three Intel Rogues do. Once you mastered all the weapons, you can really bring Talon up to speed by pairing him with say the 24S, which makes him super deadly for those 1v1 gunfights. His ability, the radar dart, can be thrown against surfaces and detects enemies nearby. The problem with this is it needs to constantly be repositioned in order to get the maximum use out of it, which sometimes can catch you out of place or even just focusing on the radar itself too often. However, this is where his passive mag gloves comes into play, where he can reclaim items from range. This can help retrieve the dart a lot quicker than usual, but still doesn't solve the problem of keep having to place it. This ability, unlike Dallas's, is easy to counter, so you need to be sneaky where you place a dart. If the opposite team notice your dart, they can easily shoot it, and then you have to wait for the dart or your ability to recharge before you can get that intel again. Then this is the problem for both Talon and Seeker's ability. He has access to the P12K, which we spoke about in last video. In my opinion, this gun needs a magazine buff, and this is dropping in the Christmas update. Talon also has access to the C4 and flashbang gadgets, both of which are fairly useful, although I think the incendiary of Dallas is a lot more useful than the C4. Flashbangs on Talon are nice, but if I wanted a character with flashbangs, I'd probably favor using a character like Shaq, who can overheal and then be more certain of winning that 1v1 entry frag. Like Dallas, Talon does have access to padded steps, so he can also be sneaky. He does lack on other perks in my opinion, although life drain is fairly nice. Talon's ability for me is easily countered, and since the change, I think Talon has really taken a step backwards in terms of being an intel rogue. So for me, Talon is a 2 out of 5. Lastly, Seeker. Off the bat, Seeker has access to the Sahara, which is one of the strongest ARs in the game, and the Aaron L212, which is one of the worst DMRs. So a real contrast in guns there. However, like Dallas, once you complete the weapon mastery, you can access all of the 7 ARs and the 5 DMRs. The arrow scanner ability is nice. You can fire it through the air and it reveals enemies along its flight path. An advantage of this over Dallas's is it can reveal more than one enemy at a time, and if you're lucky, you can pick up a kill. His passive, the Ricochet, allows him to do that by multiplying damage by 2 when projectiles are bounced, and this includes his grenade, which we'll get onto in a minute. The downside to this ability is, unlike the other two, you need to be able to aim this in a place that's going to secure the most intel, and the other team could hold back their positions, which counters this ability perfectly. So of the 3, I would argue that this has a higher failure rate than the other 2 intel rogues. His secondary, the A3 Salvo, is fairly balanced and is a bit more easy to use than that of the LW6 Revolver of Dallas. His gadgets are the Bounce Grenade, which is really strong, especially if you bounce this off the wall or floor. It gets 2 times damage, which when placed right can pick up a kill. Perk-wise, he has Life Drain, Lifeline, and Stalker, which are probably the pick of the 6 perks, and by having Lifeline, it can be really useful for those quick revives, which the other 2 intel rogues simply can't do. Because of Lifeline, I would say Seeker is a bit more useful than Talon, and the fact that you can reveal the whole team with his bow can make him really strong. I would rate Seeker a 3 out of 5 intel rogue. Now, did you enjoy that video? Then be sure to check the Season 4 tier list out right here.